The young man has a troubled past. He grew up in care and sleeps rough. He has had problems with drugs and alcohol. He's desperate for some kind of fresh start, but trusts very few people. Just a group of men on the streets, who have welcomed him as a brother, and a charity worker who volunteers with the homeless. She has noticed the change in him, these last few weeks. He thinks the change in himself is positive, but the charity worker is deeply concerned. I think he's being radicalized, she tells the Manchester Evening News. They, extremists, are out on the streets of Rusholme preaching to people. They are targeting homeless lads. He's extremely vulnerable. The views the teenager has expressed to the charity worker are serious enough for her to report him to the Northwest Counter-Terrorism Unit, who are now investigating his case. In the wake of the Manchester bomb, in which 22 people were murdered and hundreds injured, and the London Bridge attack days after, in which 8 people were killed and 48 injured, the vigilance of the authorities and the public has surged. The government's anti-radicalization drive, PREVENT, was the object of much criticism before and after the atrocities. But despite this, between April and July of this year the scheme received 200 referrals about potential radicalization from across the country, when in the previous 4-month period the number was half that. Understanding radicalization, and how it works isn't just an abstract problem, an intellectual exercise to challenge academics or politicians. In 2017, the cold reality of radicalization is all too palpable and affects all of us, reaches every community, every town and city. There can now be no doubt that a small but significant number of people, born and raised in Britain, who, as you read, are in the midst of a process where they may become willing to commit violent acts in the name of an extreme ideology. Understanding how and why this happens is vital to stopping it. As well as the human cost, extremism can drive a wedge between the ordinary Muslim majority and wider society. These events put the spotlight on radicalization, the process that takes an ordinary person on the street and turns them into someone willing to kill or die for a cause. Here, the MEN looks at how Islamist extremists recruit people, on the streets and in jail, and what campaigners think can be done to stop it. Back in 2008, a man called Ray, a newcomer to Manchester, began hanging around a dawah, preaching, stall at Longside Market. Stalls of this kind have become a familiar sight in urban areas, typically a table laid with pamphlets promoting Islam, and a couple of men keen to talk to anyone who will stop and listen. Many of these stalls are perfectly legitimate, run by men who feel called to evangelize, but this Longside stall was different, because it was used to promote jihadist ideology by the 3 men who ran it: Munir Faruqi, a local property developer who had fought alongside the Taliban in Afghanistan, Israr Malik, a petty crook, and Matthew Newton, who had converted to Islam.